and welcome to this space where we're going to be discussing how to transmit positivity in order to move forward throughout uncertainty. And for those of you who joined us when we had this space live a little while back, you certainly got a dose of what that was like. As in the middle of the space, I had to leave because there was a fire alarm in the building and I was being evacuated. Super thank you for the national team of AIESEC in Sweden for being very action oriented and finding solutions in order to make sure that you still had value in the space and the time that you did set aside. And I am doing my absolute best to make sure that that doesn't happen today. But if there was one thing that I learned from last time was you can prepare for everything, but you cannot prepare for anything, which I think says a lot about the current situation that we're in right now as well. Since you can't see me now, since I'm recording this from my screen, I just want to introduce myself if you weren't there in the last time we had this space. My name is Sarah. You can see my picture here at the bottom of the screen. I worked in AIESEC in Sweden and in AIESEC in the Philippines. And I was also part of the global business development team of AIESEC in 2018 to 2019. And currently, I live on the beautiful west coast of Sweden in a beautiful city called Gothenburg. And I'm very excited to be here for this space with you. So let's get started. Because one of the reasons why we're uh, discussing this today is that right now there are a lot of unknowns that are happening around the world, but more importantly, that are happening to us individually and to you. There may be a lot of different factors. If we just look at the fact that you, as an intern, you might be new at work, which for a lot of people can be very stressful. It can, because you have a lot of things that you need to learn for the job. You have things that you have things and expectations that you need to live up to, both on yourself but also from your employer. So there's a lot of uncertainty and unknowns in terms of figuring out your place in work. You're most likely in a new country, which can which is it's a very specific experience. I don't think I should explain it too much since you're all there, so you probably understand it completely. But moving from one country where you understand the society, you know how the systems work, you know how to, if you need to get healthcare, you know how to do that. If you need to go grocery shopping, you know what all the things in the store are. Whereas moving to a new country, I remember especially there were a lot of interns when I was working in the national office in Sweden that instead of buying milk when they went to the store, which is mjölk, they would buy filmjölk because they just looked for the word mjölk. And I hope that you didn't discover this the same way that they did, but filmjölk is a very sour type of milk that's been fermented. I think I'm not sure about the process exactly, but it's more like a yogurt, like a sour yogurt. And if you're looking for milk, that's not exactly what you want. But these are the small things that can make it hard to adapt into a new society. But especially if you're in a new country, that can be one part in itself. But if you're also new at work and combining those two, there's a lot on your plate. And that's a lot of uncertainty in itself. Now, add to that the fact that we're in the middle of a global pandemic where we're figuring things out as we go along. And I'm not pretending to be an expert on any pandemics or anything, but there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of how long will this thing last? And what does it mean for me as an individual person? What do I need to do? And everyone is reacting to this very differently. Some people might be very frightened and being very just for the sake of the uncertainty that this pandemic is bringing on. It could be in terms of the disease itself, but it could also be in terms of what does this mean for me in my, not only in my health way, but also in my personal life in general, as a lot of people have. It has been affecting the economy and so on and so forth. So that adds on a different level or layer to the level of uncertainty. There might also be turbulence back at home. I remembered going through that when I was living in the Philippines, and I'm going to give you a story about that in just 2 seconds. And there might also be social or political injustices, both where you're living, but also in your home country, around the world. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that doesn't sleep. And when I was living in the Philippines, I remember that I was sitting in our flat with my teammates, and we were having a nice game of Uno and just having some snacks, having a general a good time when I received a notification on my phone. And I checked it, and it said that a truck had driven into the warehouse Åhléns in Drottninggatan, and that people were hurt and injured. And I remember that I read it and it felt very surreal. So you can imagine that you're on one part of the world and you're realizing that something is happening back home. So I remember I just zoned out from what was happening in the room that I was in, and I was essentially just living on my phone trying to get a hold of my friends and family that I knew were in the area, and staying on the news like hawk, trying to be on Twitter, but being very critical of the information that was there, just getting any type of breadcrumb to try to get a better picture as to what was going on. That was my way of trying to get some comfort, just getting more information. Having gone through that, I do want to say that that's a very exhausting thing. And this was a one-time thing that happened, that this happened and then it was done, right? There was, of course, a lot of aftermath that is still going on until this day. But in that moment, it was more of a stressing point, and then it was dealing with the aftermath. With the different examples that we had earlier, some of these things could be one point measures, or it could also be things that are being stretched out over a longer period of time. If we take the situation with the pandemic, it's something that's been going on for months. Living in a new country can take months or even years to adapt to, depending on how you choose to do that. And that's why we're going to have a little bit of an exercise in terms of looking at these challenges, because there are some challenges that are old or that were maybe expected. Like when you move to a new country, maybe you expect that there will be some culture shocks. There will be some things that I'm going to need to learn at work, or making new friends where I live. Those are the type of challenges that maybe you went into this internship expecting, but then the new challenges that you're also facing are the ones that I think were reasonably difficult to predict with accuracy how they were going to happen. And we still don't know exactly what is going to happen looking forward. So what I would like you to do is to grab a piece of paper if you have it close by. If you want to use your phone, you're absolutely free to do that. I'm not going to be checking how you wrote it down. I normally suggest that you use pen and paper because it has a different processing function. But you do you. It's really up to you. And I would like for you to reflect on the past few months and what challenges that the past few months of your, or that for the entire duration of your internship, what are the challenges that have that this period has brought you? And also, what have these challenges meant for you? So I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to think about that. And without giving too many examples, because I don't want to anchor your thinking too much, I'm just going to reason a bit of how I was feeling in terms of the example that I was giving earlier with Attack on Drottninggatan. I remember that one of the challenges that really had for me was that I realized that I felt very disconnected from my home and from the people that I had here, because I realized that, wow, I don't know what's going on, or at least that was the feeling that I was getting. So just to give you an idea, but you'll have 2 more minutes to think about this and to journal for yourself. Now, what I would like you to do is to look at what are the underlying factors behind these challenges, and how would you like these things to be in the next year or in the next 5 years. And the reason why we're doing this is because it helps to visualize how you would like this challenge, or the factor of this challenge, to look like in the future, in order to break it down into more bite-sized pieces, and also in order for you to have a clear idea of the dream state. So you're going to get another 2 minutes here, and what we're looking at are the underlying factors behind these challenges. So following on my example that I gave earlier with feeling more disconnected, one of the factors that I might have would be, or one of the factors that I had was that I felt disconnected from, for example, my friends and family back home. And what would I like those relationships to be like in the next year or in the next 5 years? And this is just an example. Follow on your train of thought, and I'll check back in with you in a few more minutes. Next up, we're going to look very specifically at that visualization and what are the things that you could do today or this week or even this month to work towards this vision. And which one of these factors, once you have this list of the things that you could do, which ones are you willing to commit to? Which are the ones that you're willing to bring into your everyday or every week or every month as a practice? So you're going to get another 2 minutes for that. Now, if you'd like to, you can pause this video or you can continue this later. Try to think of all the things that you could do that are possible and then just really size it down to which ones you feel are feasible and that you feel work for you. Because something that is important to remember here is that especially in this pandemic, self-isolation or quarantine, it's a necessity um, in various degrees, as I'm sure that you have noticed, but it's not meant to be a betterment retreat. There is enough with the challenges as it is and the additional uncertainty and stress that brings on. It does not mean that during this period you're supposed to be as productive as ever, um, learning 5 languages, reading all the books that you have on your unread shelf at the same time as you're getting into the best shape of your life, you know? If you do, perfect, amazing. I'm really happy for you on achieving your goals. But if you do not drag yourself down feeling that, oh, I'm not being this superhuman right now. But the bottom line here is really that you're being the best version of yourself in this situation, given all the current circumstances, both of the world but also of you personally, and that you tend to yourself in a way that works for you. Um, Something else that I want to send with you is that you're not alone with this. A lot of people are in the exact same situations, um, where there is a lot of uncertainty, but things are looking better for the future. But especially during the spring, it has been very tough in the sense that people had plans, people knew this is exactly what's going to happen, but then suddenly something pulled the handbrake and a lot of things had to be slowed down, postponed, some things canceled, some things revised, some things replanned. Um, and it takes a toll when you think that something is going one way and then it decides to take a U-turn or a left turn or just jumps onto a different lane. But the important thing there is that you adapt to it and you acknowledge that yes, there is a lot of uncertainty, there might be a lot of anxiety right now. This is how I choose to face it. This is how I react best to it. And I really encourage you to do this introspection and just give this time to yourself and finding a way of self-care that works for you in the long run. Just uh, even if it's something that makes you feel good for one day, or if it's something that helps in the long run. Um, I know that for me personally, I know that cooking and baking is something that is a very big stress reliever for my part. But I also know that if I just bake cinnamon buns, which I have a tendency to do for every day in order to as a stress reliever, I also know that I'll end up eating all of those, and that's not going to serve me very well in the long run. In the sense that there you need to have some variety in your diet, right? There needs to be some balance. So I really thank you for being here in this space, and I encourage you to find that balance and to really be kind to yourself. And I hope that this has helped you in some way in order to perhaps find a new perspective or to realize something that you've wanted to do, but maybe you didn't quite place your finger on what it was that you wanted to do. And I wish that I could hear what it was that you were thinking of. You might have seen in the previous slide that it said, let's share. That was where we were meant to be discussing together. Unfortunately, we can't have that right now, but I'm super excited if you want to reach out to me to tell me about your ideas or your plans from this. Uh, you can find me either most likely on Instagram is probably where it's easier, or also on LinkedIn. But yes, I would really like to thank you for being here for this space, and I wish you the best of luck, and have a great morning, day, evening, whichever one, wherever you are watching this.